The convening conference for the Global Methodist Church is coming up in September, and this is still a nascent kind of newborn stage for this denomination. There's a lot of work that is going to be done this September to figure out the course forward. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, TJ and I began a series a couple weeks ago called, what was it called, TJ?
Preparing for the GMC General Conference or something along those lines.
Yeah. So we put that out. We haven't finished reading through that document because we needed to set everything else down and work on some petitions. We've got 8 petitions and a resolution that we have co-authored with a new friend named Ruth Blake, another Oklahoman, who helped us to format and understand how this is supposed to look and work. So hopefully what we've got is a decent production. But for submitting these petitions and a resolution, these petitions will hopefully change the transitional book of doctrines and discipline as it becomes the official rule book of the denomination. And it needs 10 signatures from Global Methodist members. And so we are publishing this piece right here to direct you to the show notes, where we're going to have a link to a form where you can read all of the things that we want to submit and you can sign on. So TJ, what's helpful to tell them before we start looking at this form?
Before we start looking at the form, I don't know. Not really anything. I have nothing.
Why should they care about this? How about that?
Why should they care about what rules the denomination that they're part of? Why should they be worried about that? Why is that important?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you should know what your organization believes and how it operates, and I don't know, a myriad of different things.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, this is what we as Global Methodists believe. You should not us, but like potentially this is what we would believe if you guys sign on to it and they pass it. But if you're part of an organization, you should know what they believe. It's just weird that you wouldn't want to know that.
Well, and it's not just doctrine, it's how we're going to operate together.
Right. Yeah.
And so there were a number of things about, almost everybody in the GMC came out of the United Methodist Church, and there was a lot of dysfunction there because, a lot of it was interpersonal and cultural, but a lot of it also was what's on the books, how do things work. And so, no matter how much you tweak this book, it's not going to be a perfect group. It has to do with those other things as well, but we need to do our due diligence. And so it's our hope, this didn't cover everything. These 8 petitions took so much time and energy from us. There's a lot more to be done, but there's going to be another general conference in 2 years where we can tackle a lot more. I'm also going to be co-sponsoring some legislation. There's a guy with a resolution on the human sexuality issue that I'm hopefully going to sponsor as well. And
this upcoming general conference or the next one?
Yeah, this one with the social principle, the social witness. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's editing that. There's another guy with a petition on Freemasonry that I think I want to get behind, and so we'll add these later. But for right now, and here's something else to say. The deadline is tomorrow, but we want as many signatures on this as possible. So
tomorrow is Thursday, May the 23rd.
Yeah. So we want, even if you are watching this or listening to this later and you are interested, we want as many signatures on this as possible so that we kind of have a gauge for where people in the Global Methodist Church care about things, what issues they care about, and what things are more niche just for us and which things are really quite important. So we're going to do a brief walkthrough of this Google form that we've created where you can go, you can review all of the petitions, and you can either support them or not support them. Once we have 10 signatures with email addresses, then we will be able to submit, and we're going to submit them all tomorrow. So we appreciate your attention on this. We appreciate you following the links and considering these things. And then at the end here, I'll tell you what my plans are for following up on this. So anything else before we move forward with this form?
I don't think so. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's what it's going to look like when you hit the link in your show notes. So whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Substack or where you listen to your podcast, there should be something called show notes. That's the text associated with this video or audio that you're watching or listening to. And it should have a link to the Google form, and it should be as such. So hopefully you can just click it and go to it. You might need to copy it and paste it into your search bar. When you do that, it should show you a page that looks exactly like that. It's called GMC Petition Signature Form. If you're listening, I'll
Well,
try.
you're on the second page. This is not the first page. Because the first question is going to be, are you a Global Methodist? Because we can only accept signatures from legitimate Global Methodists. We need your first name, last name, email address. Those are the three things that the GMC requires to be a signee of this petition, unless I took it off there. Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. Okay. So I scrolled down. Okay. So this is what you should see first. It'll ask for your email. So here here's PlainSpoken Pod. Are you a member of the Global Methodist Church? Yes. If you're not a member,
This is going to take
you can't help us.
It's going to take you to different pages. It says, sorry, you're not a member.
Very good. Okay. So then once you do that, you can hit next, and then email address. Next. All right, so this will take you to petition 1, and it will have the rationale. So it'll have a link to the actual petition. So you can click on the link, and then it will take you to the actual document. Here it is, and then it will have the actual text. So with all of these, you have the actual text of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, and then okay, so that's still the actual text right there, even though the format changes. And then when there's a line through it, that means that it was original to the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, but we're taking it out. And then when it's underlined, that's what we're wanting to add in. So the purpose of this first one and of the second one is primarily to make sure that there can be no slate voting. So one of the things that happened in the United Methodist Church was they had candidates for ministry that should not have been considered, but they had activist boards of ministry, boards of ordained ministry, that they would sneak them into a whole class and then just do a simple up-down vote on the whole class or the whole slate. This makes it so you cannot do that. So this will just make it so that you cannot sneak candidates in that are unworthy or not complying. So it's a basic form. It's not going to be the one thing that solves everything, but it's going to close up that loophole that was seen in the United Methodist Church. So going back to the form, you then hit I support or I do not support. And then it'll go to a form that we can see, a spreadsheet, and then we will just copy and paste your information in when we submit the petitions. So going down the line, the first petition had to do with ordination of deacons. The second one, it's the exact same thing for ordination of elders. It makes it so that they cannot be approved as a class. A third petition is something that I think is quite essential. It's open meetings. I'm all about transparency and accountability. You guys know this if you've been following along. That means that you have to if you go to the link to Petition 3, you'll see the particulars here to what it stipulates, but this makes it so that there can't be any secret meetings or things sneak up on you that you didn't know were coming, or meetings that they don't report on what happened. So I think it's a common sense slam dunk thing that should easily be adopted if someone doesn't have a more superior version of this. Everything good so far, TJ?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I updated it. There's the E.
Thank you. All right. So then we have a fourth one on minimum standards for annual conference websites, and that sounds super boring, but it's not, because it's going to make sure that all annual conferences have to report all the same information where we can compare and contrast and see what regions of the church are doing better than others or worse than others. There needs to be transparent, regular reporting, and so this stipulates not just financial reporting, but all the committees and groups meeting under the conference. There have to be certain maps. It sounds nerdy until you realize all the implications of it. So this will guarantee that certain minimum standards are met by every annual conference, being transparent to its people. Okay, going back to the form, financial transparency. This scratches pretty much the same itch, but it deals with the general church level, requires transparent, regular financial reporting. So maybe there's a better way to do it, in which case, a lot of this stuff will get edited by the legislative committees that are overseeing it. But this is a good place to start. And just make clear as you go through these, you don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. Maybe you can imagine things that could have been done a little bit better than this, but if you sign on, if you like what I've got better than what's in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, then support it. And then things can be augmented over time.
Yeah, it's a starting point. And then, I mean,
yeah,
people can make adjustments at General Conference, I believe.
And before.
Yeah, oh, they can before.
Yeah, the legislative. Okay, so I got an email from a guy. We'll cover this in our next segment as we go through the General Conference document. But the legislative committees are meeting for a couple months before General Conference actually gets together.
Interesting.
Okay. Right? So they're going to be able to be much more diligent than United Methodist legislative committees. So, okay. Yeah. All right. So if you're more curious, if you're curious to know more about how that works, then make sure you're subscribed so that you see our next segment that we'll publish next week. All right. Petition 6 deals with capping denominational salaries. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just of the mind that people shouldn't get rich off of proclaiming the gospel or serving the church. I don't think they should be poor either. I think there's this wonderful middle ground that can be established and should be the standard for all clergy. So I'm just, I love everybody and I appreciate a lot of people's ministry, but I don't want anybody getting rich off of serving the church. I don't want to get rich off serving the church. So,
well, and you've got specific wording for what that would look like in there.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave it vague, like nobody should get rich. We all agree. It's, in general, all bishops and general conference staff and annual conference staff, you look at the average salary of full-time clergy in their region that they serve, and then you add 3% to that. So the previous year's average of full-time elders, average together, add 3% to that, and that's
3% is for possible inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and I think most salaries, the expectation is that it goes up that percentage each year. I think that's the professional expense.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's generous. I definitely don't get 3% adjusted for inflation every year. Yeah. So.
All right. So if you like that one, support it. If you don't like it, then don't support it. The next one, the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline makes allowance for a similar structure to what the United Methodist Church has just created, which is a replacement for central conferences. It's a level of administration between the general church and the annual conference, and I just think it has a much higher capacity for doing harm than for doing good. So this outlaws it, makes it so that you can't do it.
Yeah, another unnecessary level of bureaucracy that's probably not needed. Like, just leave it in annual conferences.
Yes. Okay. And then Petition 8 is similar. This would ban any kind of ethnically based conferences. So right now, and this will come into the resolution as well, there's confusion within the Global Methodist Church about how we're going to see and deal with race. And I'm of the mind that ethnically or racially divided or designated annual conferences, not only do they sound like the Central Conference, which was a black conference in the Methodist denomination before the United Methodist Church was formed, but I just think it instills worldly divisions that are not good. So if you are with me and you don't want, I fully understand. We've already established a race-based Korean American annual conference that this would then dissolve, hopefully. And it's not that I've got anything against Koreans or that I want to dominate them or white people to dominate them. I don't want segregation in the church, whether it's self-imposed or not, whether it's wanted or not. I just think it's theologically not a good direction to go. So this would end that. And then the final piece is a resolution. I don't even know if they're allowing resolutions or not, but this one is on the racial theology of the Global Methodist Church, and it just states very firmly that we're not going to honor any kind of worldly understanding of race. We're not going to divide based on it. We're going to have, while communal realities are real and culture and class and all these things affect the real world, we are just not going to buy into racialist ideology, identitarian ideology, especially anti-racist, being practicing discrimination in the present to make up for past discrimination. This would just set a cultural precedent in the denominations so that we are aiming at equal identity in Christ and trying to undo the damage done by worldly voices with respect to race. So that's my personal agenda. I don't know how many people are on board with that. If you're not on board with it, you can go through this whole list and you can disagree with one or two or all of them. It's good for me to know. We're going to get a spreadsheet at the end that just says, petition 1, petition 2, petition 3. It'll have your email address associated, and along the column, it'll just say support, not support, support, not support. So this is good for me anyway, just to know where my audience is with respect to this stuff. You can go through and just support it all if you think that I'm right about every single thing. I'm not going to refuse your email address on the list, but even so, I am genuinely interested in engagement on these topics and your thoughts and reflections on these things. So consider spending significant, I mean, if you read through everything and reflect on it, it'll probably take you more than half an hour. So consider doing it. I think it would be a wonderful way to help me know what I'm talking about and speak to you better. So, TJ, anything else to say?
Yeah, so on those questions, there's the rationale that we've got listed, and then there's a link to the actual petition. Don't just go by the rationale. Go to the actual petition and look at it, see if it makes sense to you, if there's something that might need to be changed that we're maybe off on a little bit. I mean, we're going to have to turn them in anyways, but it would be nice to know for the next round. Maybe there's something that somebody else would add to it so that we can do for the next general conference. But don't just go by the rationale. Go and actually look at the wording of the petition to make sure that it lines up with the rationale.
Absolutely. Also, make sure this is the most important button down here. It's the submit button. If you don't hit submit, we don't get it. So once you hit submit, it should send you an email with all of your answers to confirm what you've said to us. And then, TJ, do we have a place just like an open field for any comments or reflections from them?
Comments or reflections on the
whole process, just things that they want us to know. I'm thinking I would be interested in that. So we're going to see if we can't add that at the end. It'll be an optional field if it is there. Or you can just email me directly at plainspokenpod@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah, I'll add an extra a thing right before you submit it that you could add comments to it.
Perfect.
So that should be fine.
Thank you. Okay. And so this what I'm planning on doing now, in the months between now and the convening conference, is for the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, I had a group called Considering Charlotte that got together. I'm going to try and convene a group of global Methodists that we'll call Considering Costa Rica, where we will review not just my petitions, but the stuff submitted by the TLC, other petitions. I'm going to try and maybe eventually have a website or a landing page of all the legislation that I'm supporting, and just week to week foster a conversation about what we want to be, who we want to believe, what we want to believe, who we want to be, and how it is that we're going to stand together in the near future. And then based on what happens in September, it'd be great to then have a more formal group putting together those final petitions for a working. They're going to meet again 2 years later to come up with, like, they're going to meet every 6 years, it looks like, after that. So who are we going to be? What are we going to stick with for at least 6 years after 2026? And I want to make sure that we have a really good product. So I want to facilitate that publicly in the open, integrate as many voices as possible. And if you want to be a part of that conversation as well, then make sure you're subscribed and you follow along with us, and pray for us, because TJ's really smart, but I'm really not. So I'm just happy to try and help everybody participate, and let's make sure that the Global Methodist Church is not bureaucratically heavy, but is a democratized. I want a populist organization where everybody is passionately working together in equal connections. So pray for the Global Methodist Church and pray for us. And I appreciate any attention you can give to this. I'm really excited to hear what you think. So TJ and I say goodbye, and God bless you.
Adios, everybody. Until next time.
And we'll see you soon. All right, bye.